Enderman Slayer, one of the hardest slayers in the game, yet possibly the most rewarding, unlocking items like the Juju Shortbow and the Terminator. However, there are so many people that struggle with this boss, so today I'm going to be showing you guys how to do every single tier of the Enderman Slayer boss. Also, a bunch of people have been requesting for my setup and stuff like that when I do Enderman Slayer videos, so I'm going to be showing that as well. Other than that, join the Discord, there's almost always a giveaway active, and enjoy the video. First up, the tier 1 boss. Yes, this boss is a literal joke. You can do it in Young Drag and AOTE. And before anyone says anything about magical power and talismans and stuff like that, I was doing this at about 300 magical power, which is where someone should be for Enderman Slayer, well, at least the tier 1, and I took my Ender artifact out, so I wasn't getting that damage reduction bonus. Next up, tier 2 boss. This is where the boss starts to not be a joke anymore. I would recommend either full Shadow Assassin armor, or if you can get your hands on it, full Necron armor. You should also be using a Livid Dagger, somewhat like this one, Hot Potato books, and mainly Siphon 4 on this to get that healing back. And you also want to be using a rare or epic or better Enderman pet that's level 80 or higher. I would also recommend having at least 400 magical power. And lastly, a couple utility items. I would recommend having a healing wand, like a Wand of Mending maybe, that's probably decent, and also an Ornate or Florid Zombie Sword. And here's a clip of me doing the boss. Couple of things to note here are that I'm using my Wand of Atonement frequently, just so I can keep my healing going, and I'm also using my Florid Zombie Sword whenever I get low. Also, after the second hits phase, the boss is going to start throwing these Yang glyphs, which are literally just beacons that he throws. You just have to go stand next to them and they'll go away. However, if you don't tend to them in 5 seconds, they will insta-kill you. Next up, we're going to be looking at the tier 3 boss. However, keep in mind that this boss is a big step up from the tier 2. So for this boss, as far as armor goes, you're going to be needing the full set of Final Destination armor, which is the specialized armor set for Enderman Slayer. Now, as far as the weapon goes, I know that a lot of you guys are not going to be Enderman Slayer 5 when you're trying to take on the tier 3, so I would have said Vorpal Katana. However, if you can't get to that because of the Enderman Slayer 5 requirement, you can settle for the Void Edge Katana, which is like the smaller brother of the Vorpal Katana. You should be able to do it. It has an Enderman Slayer 3 requirement. You should still be using the same Enderman pet, and this time I'd recommend having at least 500 magical power. And with this, you should be using the Bloody Power Stone. If you can get Hurtful, that's better, but I don't expect you guys to have something that expensive at this stage of the game. And the Final Destination armor should have at least 10,000 kills on it. Recom is optional. I'd highly recommend it though. Be reforged to Ancient and have Wisdom 5 on it, as well as Rejuvenate 5 in all pieces. Lastly, for the utility items, this is going to require some more items. So, firstly, you should have either a Reaper Scythe or a Summoning Ring or a Necromancer Sword, just so you can get summons. These will rip through that hits phase. You're not going to be able to melee it, because it does too much damage. A Soul Whip is optional. I have Siphon on mine because I'm doing tier 4s right now for Enderman Slayer 7, but for this, I'd recommend probably having Mana Steel because you're not going to need Siphon right now. I have an Overflux here, but you will do just fine with the Mana Flux. An Overflux is obviously recommended, but the Mana Flux will definitely work. A Wand of Atonement, I'd highly recommend getting one. It's going to be really difficult with a Wand of Restoration, so I'd recommend just getting the Wand of Atonement. Shouldn't be a big grind to Rev 7. An Aspect of the Void or the End, just to get the beacons, just because they're also there in the tier 3, and I would recommend having a Florid Zombie Sword for the tier 3. I don't actually have a Void Edge Katana for this boss, so I'm just going to be picking this up on the AH for 14 million coins to do the tier 3. Notice that as soon as I spawn the boss, I put my Mana Flux down, I put my summons down, and I get away from the boss so it doesn't hit me during the hits phase. When the hits phase, it's going to do a ton of damage, so make sure it can't touch you then. Keep in mind that after the second hits phase, the boss is going to start throwing those beacons again, so just make sure you get to them in time. Also, a new thing with this boss, after the third hits phase, it's gonna start throwing these little Enderman heads out. They don't do much damage at first, but if you just let them be, they're gonna stack up and do a lot of damage. All you have to do to get rid of them is just look at them. And lastly, we're going to be taking a look at the tier 4 boss, which is the last and most difficult boss of them all. So, let's start with the armor. I'd recommend having full Final Destination armor again. Hot Potato books I would strongly recommend. I have Fumings on this, but Fumings are mostly optional. Wisdom 5, obviously. You need Rejuvenate 5, just like we had before. I would say recom these this time. Ancient still stays, and this time I'd recommend having at least 50,000 heals on each piece. You could probably get away with less, but 50,000 is a nice amount. For the weapon, you're going to want to be using the Atom Split Katana. I would recommend having Ultimate Wise on it, because you can just use the ability and damage shouldn't really be an issue that much. I'd recommend having Hot Potato Books and Fumings, a bunch of tier 6 enchants like Ender Slayer 6 and Sharpness 6. Recommend having Siphon rather than Lifesteal, and Flawless Sapphires I'd recommend having as well. And then obviously the other stuff like the Withered Reforge or Fabled if you wanted, and a Recom. I'd still recommend having your Reaper Sights with Ultimate Wise 5 and those tank zombie summons. You're also still going to need the zombie sword and the Wand of Atonement. Wand of Atonement is a requirement here. You would also have your Soul Whip. Unpopular opinion, a lot of people like Mana Steel on theirs, but I actually prefer Siphon because I can just get my health back. And with the next item, which is the Overflux is basically required. With the Overflux, your mana shouldn't really be an issue, so you can just regen your health with a Soul Whip. Lastly, I'd recommend having at least 600 magical power with, you also need to have the Ender artifact here, because of the 20% damage reduction. That will actually do so much for you. I'd really strongly recommend having your Power Stone on Hurtful, and your tunings on bonus attack speed. Your tunings you can refine them to damage or health. However, for the Power Stone, if you are having trouble surviving, instead of going for Hurtful, you can go for Slender. This is a really nice Power Stone for Enderman Slayer. And now for the pet, you can still continue to use your Enderman pet. However, I'd probably recommend getting this to Mythic because it helps you spawn the boss faster. You don't really need it, it's just my preference. However, I would strongly recommend getting a level 100 Legendary Ender Dragon because of the End Strike ability and the superior ability. They will make your damage go, like, through the roof. I'd also recommend having it not tier boosted and have a Shelmet on it because Shelmet is just OP for this boss, for Enderman Slayer, like, overall. If you can't afford a non-tier boosted Ender Dragon, just stick with the Enderman pet. And now let's jump into a tier 4 boss. As you're about to see, most of the principles in this boss are the same thing from a tier 3. The tier 4 does have a new attack, which is the laser phase. The lasers will do damage to you if they hit you, but it's really easy to counter, you just need to jump over them. Anyway, that's just about gonna wrap it up for this video. If you guys have any questions or comments on this guide, leave them down in the comments. But I wanted to thank you guys so much for making it here in this video. If you guys did enjoy, please make sure to like and subscribe, as that helps me out an absolute ton. Join the Discord, there's a 3 million coin giveaway that's going on right now. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.